the universe has in store for you so much more magnificent a dream than you could ever think about. So when I asked the universe for a view in a swimming pool, I didn't say a best friend for my daughter, but it came with a best friend. So my daughter is saying, I wish I had a sister, or maybe she's, releasing rockets of desires. And the universe, the infinite intelligence of the organizational power of the universe, has the ability to line up everyone's desires and put it all in one. So you don't have to be absolutely specific, but you do have to align your energy to what you're asking for. And that is that going into that relaxed space, that trust. What does trust feel like? It feels like peace. It feels like knowing. What does trust feel like? And living in that space of just carefreeness and relaxed and allowing. What does it feel like to trust? What does it feel like to know that everything is taken care of? What does that feel like?
Welcome to the Wise Old Soul podcast. My name is Lee Chandler, and I am so excited today. We have a guest with us that you're going to absolutely love. But first, the Wise Old Soul is the entity that we have inside all of us. We like to bring on guests that will give us their perspectives that may or may not help you in different ways. So today, I have a great friend, a teacher, a woman from Australia by the name of Swain. Karen, welcome.
Hey Lee, so great to be with you here today. Thanks so much for having me on your fabulous new podcast show.
Thank you so much. Many people probably don't know this, but I refer to you as the teacher of teachers. You've done so much in your life, but ladies and gentlemen, Karen was instrumental in encouraging me to start with a podcast.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting to know where things start, and you've been instrumental, and I thank you so much for that, Karen.
Listen to Lee's voice. I mean, I met Lee last year, 2023, and his voice is like, I said, you could read the phone book and you'll enlighten people. It's just got such a beautiful, honey, creamy voice, such a deep, gorgeous voice. And I said, how are you going to use that gorgeous voice of yours to help uplift humanity? What about a podcast show? He wasn't too keen on it at the beginning. It took him, a couple of months to warm to the idea. But here we are. We are here doing it.
We are. But, you've had such an extensive life when it comes to spirituality and how you've grown. And, really, that's what so many of the people that are listening to us are looking for is stories, and to understand what other people have gone through, because many people are going through it themselves. And I think they really think they're almost going crazy and trying to get a bit more of an understanding. So if I'm not mistaken, Karen, I know you started in body work. I don't know if that's really when you started to awaken, or maybe you could talk to me about when was it that you really started to awaken?
Well, that's a great question. One I think about often because I really don't know. I think that many of us are given signs, about who we are and what we're here to do. But then we're listening all the time to the collective voice, aren't we? We're listening to the mainstream media. We're listening to the habitual thought patterns and conditioning of our parents, of our society, of our religions, of our education system that is telling us who we are. And then there's a little voice inside saying, actually, this is who you are. This is who you are. Are you listening? This is who you are. And for some, it takes 50, 60 years to really listen to that. For some, they're listening from the get-go. For some, it's a slow burn. And I think that for me, it was a little bit of a slow burn. So I was like wanting to be a fashion designer and an artist and anything creative. And then I'm in my early 20s, and a girlfriend said, I have booked a massage course this weekend. I can't do it. She was working in the film industry, still works in the film industry. She's a magnificent makeup artist. She's won a slew of awards. She worked on Priscilla. Anyway, she's fabulous, one of my best friends. She said, I'll give you this course. Can you do it for me? I can't do it because I'm working this weekend. And I said, not interested at all. Not interested at all. Please, you don't have to pay. Anyway, so I took the course and I loved it. And I loved the fact that we were healing and making a difference, but I loved the couple that were teaching us. They said something that really struck me. They said, we used to be in the corporate world and we were climbing up the corporate ladder and we were earning great money and we had the fantastic apartment, we could travel, we could do anything, but we were both miserable. We were both really unhappy. And then we did a massage course and it really sparked our passion and our interest. And so we moved out of the corporate world and we started doing massage and teaching massage, and we make much less money. Our lifestyle is much less luxurious, but we're both ecstatically happy. And I remember thinking, I need to listen to this couple. I need to listen. There's something here. There's a message here for me. There's a message. Not that I was in the corporate world, but, contributing to people, helping people was a desire within me, and I just didn't know how or what or where or anything. So I embarked on a 5-year full-time naturopathic course. It's like jump in all the way, and studied for 5 years. But what I found is during the times that I was working with people and touching people and massaging people, I was getting so much information about them. I think I had always got a lot of information about people, but I'd never recognized it. I'd never really understood what was happening to me until I was working one-on-one in that way. And I started speaking what I was getting and freaking people out. I was massaging a Hollywood actor who was out here making a B-grade movie. He was quite famous on some television shows. And I started telling him his life plan and why he was in Australia. I started telling him all this information I didn't know about him. And then there was another very famous Hollywood actress who was out here. And it was the first time I started channeling. She had a picture of a guru on her set of drawers in the hotel I was massaging her. And I had asked the question, what is all this Indian guru stuff about? And I had this physical and spiritual and emotional experience where I physically felt my head expanding. I mean, obviously my head wasn't physically expanding, but it felt like it. And I felt like my ears were touching the walls. Like I had this feeling of, woo, and it was my crown chakra opening. And I started channeling, and I told her why she chose the family she came into, why her sister had died, why this happened, why that happened, who she was and what she was here. Like I just told her who she was and what she was here to do. She was still chasing the Hollywood dream of being the famous actress, and that was not her soul path. But she could use her platform as a celebrity to awaken people, to have a voice, to have a stage, to have a voice. And that's exactly what she went on to do. Oh, makes me cry thinking about it. But yeah, so it was during those days where I started to recognize who I was and what I was here to do. Yeah, a teacher of teachers, just like you say, Lee. Absolutely.
Well, what's interesting, Karin, is as you were talking, that it was almost a sudden awakening, then really that you really cracked open your crown chakra opened up. As you said, your ears literally felt like they were going out to either wall.
Yeah.
And you started. And you started to channel, and I guess one of the things, people have different ideas of what channeling is.
Yeah.
And let's just clarify that up front, and we'll continue on this path of where you grew into. So what's your definition of channeling?
Ooh, that is such a great question. That's such a great question. We are all channeling all the time. We are body, mind, spirit, soul. We are an apparatus that has energy or consciousness, if you like, flowing through this apparatus called the physical body, the physical mind, the brain. And depending on your intention, your desire, and your attention, you will shift that focus of channeling. So we are channeling our souls already, but we're also channeling what people have called the ego. And we're channeling all of it. But when you have an intention, either from your soul's perspective or your human perspective, of using that stream of consciousness that flows to you and through you, you can direct that. And so often you'll hear people say, I didn't ask for this and this started happening to me. A lot of channelers say that. But from their soul's perspective, they did ask for it. They said, I'm going to go to Earth and have a human experience, and I'm going to be a voice for the divine or for broader perspective or higher consciousness or whatever you want to call it. And so that agreement is already set up before people incarnate into their physical bodies. And then while they're under the river of oblivion, which is a word that I got from Samuel Chong, who is someone that's promoting the Toba prophecy books, which is called the veil of forgetfulness. While we're under that experience, then this opening happens and we start channeling. And then that's when people say, I didn't ask for it, I didn't expect it, but it's already set up. But when you focus your intention, you can channel anything. You can channel mathematics, you can channel art, music, stories, you can channel your spirit guides, your higher self, dead people. Like, you can tap in to anything you want and channel it. And I really feel, Lee, that as we're moving into a new experience on planet Earth, that channeling becomes less of a phenomena that's experienced as weird or woo-woo or strange to the collective mind, and it's a normal experience. So my experience with channeling is I don't need to do a mudra or breathe or go into meditation to channel my spirit guides or your spirit guides or some, a galactic perspective or source energy or higher selves or dead people or whatever. I'm just connected and it flows through me and it's there all the time. I'm in my ego mind. I'm criticizing, I'm worrying, I'm crying, I'm laughing. And then I might pose a question, why is that happening? And bang, I've got the answer straight away. I'm not attached to the answer. That's the thing. When you're crying out, why, you're too attached to the answer, and that kind of blocks or interferes with the stream of consciousness that you're summoning. But when you're not attached and you go, oh, that's interesting, tell me more about that, like, I'll get the answer straight away. I never really ask who it is. Sometimes I get a very clear feeling or image of a energy that I'm speaking to, an identity. It could be someone's dead relatives, or if I ask to speak to that person that was physically incarnated as a person, and say, let me speak to this person's dead husband, dead, mother, brother, whatever, I'll get an identity. But often it's just a stream of consciousness, a stream of intelligence that I can tap into and receive answers. And why I know that the answers are correct is I always get this feeling of, oh, when you're doing a puzzle, say you're doing a crossword puzzle and you can't get the answer, and then you get it and you have that feeling of, oh, that's it. Oh, that's the answer. That's the right answer. And it's a feeling of, oh, right. Yeah, that makes sense. Right. It's this feeling that washes over me that I know that what I'm receiving is right because I feel it as this aha moment, like this aha. Oh, right. That makes so much sense. And I believe all of us, as we move into this new experience on planet Earth, will have that access, like we're walking Googles. We can tap in. We've got access to broader perspective or higher knowing anytime we want it. We can talk to dead people if we like if we want to talk to Nikola Tesla about some, scientists can talk to Einstein or whatever consciousness that was physically incarnated that had information that you want to know. You can just tap in and talk to them. I believe it will happen to humanity at large eventually. Yeah, and it'll be less woo-woo because all of us are channeling all the time.
Sure. And I appreciate what you said using the crossword puzzle as an example. We've all had this question and you're going, I've got the answer on the tip of my tongue. And when we actually release it and forget about it, but we still want the answer, it just seems to come to us. It just drifts down and just drops in. Now, I know, Karn, when you and I have worked together, I sometimes hear you refer to that consciousness, that general consciousness that you're not looking for anyone particular. It's that stream of consciousness coming from the universe, really, that you refer to it as your mob, which has a variety of entities, for lack of a better term, that there's nothing specific, but it's more than one thought that could be coming at one time. Would that be relatively accurate?
Yeah, I think that when I recognized that what I called my common sense was guidance, like I was a young girl asking to meet my spirit guide. And I did this course with this teacher, and they gave me a tape back in the days where you put a tape into the tape recorder, and you go on a guided meditation, you breathe and you walk along a beautiful path, and you're in a beautiful garden, and you see a pool, a pond, and you sit by the pond and you invite your spirit guide to come. I'm looking for identity. I'm looking for a name. I'm looking for an image. I'm very visual, so I see a lot. I'm looking, and I wasn't getting anything. And I went to my teacher and I'm like, I can't get this. And I tried and tried, and he's like, well, maybe you just can't do it. And I'm like, damn, can't do this. I'm hopeless, can't do this stuff. Anyway, which was not the case. My spirit guides said to me, they were laughing. They laugh at me a lot. They laugh to think that an exalted soul, like we all are, can forget who they are. They think that's hilarious. When we play this game of ego, and we identify with being, the little me, like we say, this is me. They think that that's really funny. So they said to me one day, oh my God, they said, we, using the word we, have been so many identities. Pick one and we'll show up as one. So they were giving me a clue that I was not talking to one person, like I'm expecting some person with a name and an identity, the way that we relate in human experience. And they said, we've been so many. So they gave me this we. And I was like, what, who are you? And I get this experience of seeing like many heads, if you like if you're looking down on a crowd or a mob of people, you don't really see the identity, but you see many. So I started calling them the mob, very, irreverently, like, oh, I'm talking to a mob of you. Like, and then when I was a bit older, I thought, I can't tell people I'm talking to a mob of spirit guides. I will call them something different. And I had opened, by this stage, I'd opened and closed a furniture shop, and I'd called it Bliss. And then I called my massage business Blissful Beings, and thinking that name is like, we're being blissful. And I'm also speaking to beings that are in bliss. And I kept asking them for a name. What do I call you? Who are you? What do I call you? What do I call you? Which they also thought was hilarious, because they are beyond identity and naming. That's, again, the human perspective. And then they said to me one day, who do you think blissful beings are? Who do you think the blissful beings are? And I'm like, oh, that's you guys, blissful beings. Life is a journey of infinite possibility. Oh, that's you guys. So I started calling them blissful beings. And then I went back to the mob because I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, it's a stream of consciousness. It's a collective stream of consciousness. The way they've explained it to me, as I've understood, as I became more evolved in this stuff and this understanding, is that it's energy that has incarnated into many different life forms on this planet and on any other planet. But who we are beyond physical identity or identity at all is an extension of source, is an extension of energy, of infinite intelligence, infinite possibility. And then we group together through soul family and soul intention. And so, like, the people overseeing the evolution of planet Earth have kind of come together, the energy, the spirit guides, if you like, that are not physically incarnated into form from other dimensions or other planets. They group together as a stream of consciousness. And it's vast, and you can't count them. Like they said to me, we have been so many identities. You can't count how many people are there. It's this one intelligence that has flowed through many identity. And yeah, and that's the mob. That's the mob. That's what I call the mob.
And what I'm hearing is, as we all awaken, as we all have these experiences, And we sometimes think we're maybe going crazy, or, what is that in the back of my mind? Invariably, this one word always comes up for me, and that word is trust. We have to trust it. And that trust is really centered right in our heart chakra, and maybe down into the solar plexus a bit, but we feel it when we are aligned with what we're hearing. Is that similar to what has happened for you, Karin, over the years, that trust and just that immediate recognition, bang, it's accurate?
Yeah, the journey of trust was a long, winding journey for me and for many, I think. I trust on so many ways. Trust that what you're receiving is true, because we're conditioned to think that imagination is not real. And yet the guides say imagination is us talking to you. How else do we talk to you? We talk to you through your imagination. And imagination is you tapping into some reality somewhere. It might not be real as in it's physically manifest in your life at this moment, but how do you create? You create through your imagination. You think about something, whether it's good or bad, like I don't want this to happen or I do want this to happen. You imagine it. Like when you watch something scary and then you're scared, and then you think about yourself in that situation and you go, oh, I never want that to happen. I never, and then you put yourself in that. It's like you're imagining it happening to you and you're creating it. You're creating it as you imagine it. So imagination is how we manifest in all dimensions. And so imagination is also your soul talking to you, and trusting that, because we have to overcome the conditioning. Trusting that your imagination is your guidance, like the images and the thoughts and the feelings that you're getting is the answer to what you're asking for, whether you're asking for another or you're asking for yourself. But trust on so many levels. One of the biggest stories I had with trust is I'm a young healer, I'm a single mother, I'm struggling financially, and I owe thousands of dollars, and I can't pay my bills. And all I'm doing is stressing about money and thinking, I've got to give up this healing game, this psychic game, and get a real job. I've got to try and make some money so I can feed my family. And I had a chat with the mob, the guides, and they said, do not take any action into looking for another job. Because I'm thinking in those days, before the internet, read the paper, look for a job in the paper. I've got to get the paper, I've got to find a job, I've got to find a job to pay the bills. And they're like, no. And I said, well, what's going on? Like, I'm really stressing. I don't know what to do. And they said, you're having a lesson in trust. And I'm like, what? You're having a lesson in trust. I'm like, no, I don't want a lesson in trust. I just need a job. I just need a job so I can pay all these. I can't pay my car bill, my rent, all this stuff. And anyway, they said, just relax and go to the beach. And I'm like, ha, 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 just relax and go to the beach, right? Yeah, right. Then the phone rings and it's a girlfriend. Would you like to go to the beach? And the message is ringing my ears, just relax and go to the beach. And every cell in my body wanted to scream, no, I've got to go buy the paper and get a job. Like, that's how I was feeling. But I'm listening at the same time to my guidance, because I'd learned to listen to it, even though I was like not making the bills. And you're having a lesson in trust. You're having a lesson in trust. The other directions that they gave me was, whatever you do, don't talk about your problems. Don't tell people what's going wrong. Just relax and go to the beach. You're having a lesson in trust. So I say to my girlfriend, okay, I'll go to the beach. And so we go to the beach and she starts asking me. She was a client and then became a friend. Mm-hmm. She had inherited lots and lots of money. So she was very wealthy, but she was also, is also fabulous. And she's since moved out of Sydney, so I don't see her so much anymore. But anyway, so she's saying, now, how's your business going? Are you making money? And I said, it's going well. I'm having a powerful lesson in trust at the moment. And then she's like, okay, but are you making enough money? I said, I'm having a powerful message in trust if everything's fine. So I didn't talk about it, but she kept harassing me because she got the message from the guides. She kept harassing me and asking me, and I kept avoiding her question. and telling her I'm having a lesson in trust at the moment. And she said, look, I think I need to give you some money. Let me go home and write you a check for $5,000. Which was the exact amount I needed at the time to make all the bills. It didn't leave anything left over, but it was enough to pay all the bills at the time. And I said, no, like back in the day when people wrote checks, I said, no, I won't accept it. But she was insistent. She's very insistent. So we went back to her place and she just wrote me the check. I tried to refuse. She wouldn't let me refuse. And she gave me all this money and it paid the bills. And at that point, I started to get it. I started to get this lesson in trust. Trust is about relaxing and letting it happen. Like, get out of your story, get out of your stress, get out of your, I don't know how to do this, or I can't do this, or I'm making this up. Like, let go and let God. Let go and be in the flow. Powerful stuff, Lee. I want to cry.
Karen, obviously it was some momentum for you as well to get out from underneath some of that burden.
Right.
And you were learning, you were trusting, your expenses got looked after, which I'm sure started to allow you to pick up some more momentum in your other businesses. And also from a growth perspective, your psychic abilities probably grew at that stage with less stress. What was the next step in your growth through spirituality and your psychic abilities? And I know you ended up on the radio with yourself, and I believe another individual kind of filled in from time to time as well. But you got a fairly significant following happening.
Yeah. As I say, this lesson in trust was like over many years. I think it was like 20 years, in my early 20s and into my 40s. Yeah, how did I get on radio? Well, I had been watching that silly show, Frasier. You know Frasier? It's a great show, actually.
Sure.
It's quite funny. And he is a psychiatrist who's on radio sprouting a whole lot of wisdom to people. He wasn't sprouting too much wisdom, but it gave me that idea of teaching. At this point, I'm in my 40s. I'm already a teacher of deliberate creation. And I'm thinking about the collective conditioning and how we are all hypnotized by what we call our media system. Like, I had done a healing course and I'd learned about the different brain waves, and I'd learned how psychic ability flows on different brain waves. So when we're in a beta brain wave, hang on, how's it go? It's that brain wave of mental activity, asking questions. And when we relax, we go into a theta brain wave, an alpha brain wave. And in that alpha brain wave, we're a little bit more relaxed than when we're like, talking, thinking. And we have more access to memory. And then when we drop in frequency in our brain waves and move into a theta, or theta, we call it in Australia, theta brain wave, we have access to more memory, but we also have access to broader perspective. And depending on which level you're in theta brainwave, you have different access. So I had learned about access to wisdom or collective understanding or broader perspective or broader knowing. And it's that when we're relaxed, right? When we're happy, we're usually relaxed when we're happy. And when we're passionate, we're quite relaxed. And when we're stressing, we literally pinch ourselves off from that access to infinite intelligence. So I'd also learned that our media puts us in a relaxed brainwave. So when we listen to music or watch television or watch screens, we relax and go to an alpha or theta brainwave. And children actually operate in a theta brainwave. And when you're in a theta brainwave, your mind is very open, giving you access, but it's also open to the information that flows in and becomes a part of your collective operating system, your collective consciousness. And so the messages that we were receiving through our media systems was all fear-based. It's all fear. It's all fear. Like all the commercials, like watch commercials. Get this insurance because you could die, or you could get cancer, or wear this makeup because, no one's going to love you if you're ugly. lose weight because, no one's going to love you if you're fat. There's all these messages that are bombarding us on a daily, moment to moment, minute by second, that's telling us how we're not enough. And I had an idea that I wanted to go on the airwaves and tell people and teach people about their powers of creation, about just like what I'm teaching you now, about how when we relax, we have access to broader knowing and infinite intelligence, call it your spirit guides or whatever, and to teach deliberate creation. And I was telling this to a girlfriend who was a working psychic. She'd been a working psychic for years. She was a teacher, school teacher, and then she wanted to develop her psychic ability. She didn't feel like she had any psychic ability at the time. So she set forth in developing and became very proficient and opened up a business as a psychic medium and had this thriving business, like booked out, people wanting to have positive messages, speak to dead people, that sort of thing. You're working psychic. And I had told her about my idea and she said, great, let's do it. So she was instrumental in getting me up and moving. And we went to the local community radio station and started, and we were both laughing and like scared, just scared. And we learned how to be on radio in this very small community radio station that no one was listening to. And what we used to do is get people to call in. We have to find our audience because there was no audience really, but we could play on this radio station. And people would ring up and she would do a psychic reading and then I would talk about deliberate creation. And I watched her, how she did her psychic readings, and she was somebody else that talked about that trust word. I've just got to trust what I'm getting. Even when I say, I can see this, I can see that, and the person's going, no, not me. No, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't, I watched her and she kept saying, I've just got to trust what I'm getting. I've just got to trust, even when the person says no, because the person's memory is not always reliable. You often see on psychic shows where the psychic will say something and the person will say no. And then later they interview the person. They say, yeah, I forgot about this person or that. And yes, that, and they'll remember that what the psychic was saying was true. But in the moment, being in the hot seat, they might not always remember the details the psychic's getting. And I remember that was another lesson in trust, watching her say, I've got it, because she's one of those psychic that gets all those details I don't get, because that's not my mandate in this lifetime. It's not my job to do psychic readings, to talk about, oh, I can see you've just renovated your house, or you're going on a cruise, or you're going to meet this man. That's not what I do. But that's what she did. And so we played together, and then her husband retired and she decided to go on a trip around the world on a boat because she was a sailor. We both sailed. And so she said, I can't do this with you anymore. And she fled. And then I thought, I'll go on a bigger station that has more audience. And we didn't have a 7-second delay, so I couldn't take calls and do readings. I started talking to people about their experience. And that was how this podcast show was born. It was born on radio. I started talking to people about their experiences and interviewing or having conversations with healers and psychics and musicians and creative people. I was talking to a mainstream audience, so I was sort of dumbing down the conversation to fit the mainstream mind. That's why I called the show Accentuate the Positive, thinking that that would fit an understanding. It's a teaching in itself, and it's also quite, you can understand that's not called cosmic consciousness, which a lot of people wouldn't understand, like what? But Accentuate the Positive. And then when I moved off radio, they kicked me off, actually. I was there for 5 years. I never wanted to go because I was there for 3 hours every Saturday playing music and talking to people live and talking to people on the phone. I was having a great time. And but the universe had different plans for me at that stage, and I was stubborn and wanted to stay. So they kicked me off. And then I just started podcasting, and I started having different conversations, more expansive, more galactic, different conversations, not trying to banter to a mainstream mind. I think that that's why they kicked me off too. Like, just speak your truth. Just speak about what you want to speak about. Don't worry about if people understand you or not, right? And so kicking me off radio was a gift, really. It was really a gift.
You were able to find that silver lining, and obviously your career has continued to prosper. You're doing many, many more things now than you probably have ever done. And like everything else, we grow, and we grow out of things, and we grow into new things, right?
Absolutely. And this is what's going to happen to you on this show too. I'm so excited to see where this goes, because you know, Lee, I don't know, because I'm going to have Lee on my show, everybody, and you can hear Lee's story, but, you know, he's been a businessman on his life, but interested in this stuff. So he's sort of jumped in feet first, you know, head first into this sort of podcasting game and having these conversations. And yeah, when you start, you know, it's so magical, Lee. You meet so many amazing people with amazing stories, and you learn so much, and you learn about people. The people that are listening, you know, have that ride, but the person that's also having the conversations with their guests, they also have this wonderful ride. I've seen so many podcasters evolve as they've had their shows and had, you know, different perspectives and different stories on their shows. And,
Sure.
you know, the podcasters like learning, and along with the audience, it's so rich. It's such a rich ride. And I'm so excited for you and this ride to see where you take it. It just naturally unfolds, and your interest in what you're into comes out.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a rich
Thank
ride.
you. I very much appreciate that. And, you know, we are all teachers and we're all students. And this podcast is really about allowing people to listen to other people's stories, recognize that old soul that is within all of us, and allowing that old soul to guide us, to teach us, to wake us up, whatever it may be. But, you know, Karin, I just find that more and more people that I talk to are no different than me. We're just average people. We may have had some experiences. They may have had some experiences. We sometimes share those experiences. And there's just a real need right now, I believe, for people to just hear other stories, let them know that what they're doing is exactly where they need to be. And, you know, my friend Wayne Dyer, when we took him and Deepak across Canada, and then when Wayne and Louise went to Europe with us, the number of times I heard Wayne Dyer talk about, I'm not necessarily sure what I'm about to say, but it's exactly what you need to hear, is so true. And no matter what, when we hear things, there's always a nugget somewhere buried inside there that we may reflect upon at a later date. It happens to me all the time. The number of things that I've learned just through you and I doing connections and things once a week over an extended period of time has been such a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell people about that. So Lee's a businessman. He's had a business all his life building houses. He's a builder, or has a building business. And was it in the 80s, Lee? When was it that you had been listening to Wayne and Deepak and Louise Hay and all those beautiful people that were around, you know, at the beginning of our journeys anyway? And you were living in Canada at the time, right? And you felt like that message needed to be spread through Canada. Do you want to tell people what you did?
Well, I was hoping to kind of stay on track with you, but I'm always willing to share that. But it was important for me. I appreciated what they were saying. That's when I learned to take the time and quiet the mind a little bit. And I had followed what Deepak had been talking about with TM, and I'm not saying TM's the end all be all for everybody, but it was an introduction into meditation and allowing that voice that we have that just continues to run on a tape over and over and over. You know, those 60,000 thoughts we have a day are the same ones we had yesterday and the same ones we're going to have tomorrow. But the meditation allows those to start to subside, and we bring new thoughts in, and expansion starts to take place. And with that understanding, I reached out to Wayne and Deepak both and said, hey, I would like to do something with you across Canada in 4 different cities. And they said, okay. And all it took was a phone call. So I think the important thing out of that whole lesson is when we really believe that we need to do something or we want to make a difference, the most critical thing is to take a step forward and start. Whether it's doing a podcast, whether it's talking to somebody that you want to learn from or share their information with other people, it's critical. Step forward. It doesn't matter how big that step is, but we step forward, and then we can take another step and another step. We all talk about baby steps, and you're right. We take baby steps forward. Sometimes we fall backwards, but the fact is we will start to gain momentum going forward.
Yeah.
And so that made a huge difference, which really put me on that path And over time, different things have transpired. And again, here I am in my mid 60s, and there was a calling inside me saying, Lee, you've spent time in temples, you learned from many monks and nuns over in Thailand on meditation and consciousness. There's more. And that's when you and I actually connected as well. I wanted to learn more, and so I was looking for teachers. And obviously we have many teachers and people that we learn from, but obviously you came up on my screen, and I reached out to you, and we had a couple of conversations, and one thing led to another, and we've had the opportunity to meet on a weekly basis we're going to be pushing, well, it's not too far off 6 months right now, so we've gotten to know each other quite well.
6 months, really? It's been 6 months.
It first time I reached out to you was back in late September, I think. Maybe it was October, but one thing grows, and here we go. And obviously that's the nice thing about it is there's lots of people out there that may be looking for opportunities to grow, and I know that as a teacher of teachers, they will find you.
Yeah, but they do. They find me. It's interesting. It's not like being a psychic where, like, I know that you wanted to put one of the psychics I had on the show who retired and then became a psychic and a reader. And like when you're a reader, so many people want to reach out, they want a reading, they want to know the future. It's not like that. When you're a teacher of teachers, you don't have the plethora of clients like you have, because not everyone is will step forward as a teacher. Everyone is a teacher, as you say, but not everyone will sort of step forward like that. But teacher of teachers, there are many teachers on the planet. And it's been, I've got to say, Lee is just amazing. It's just amazing. So at the beginning of our time together, you spoke about how you had this energy phenomena. I know I'm making this all about you. This is what I do, Lee. And I did
go on it.
I didn't, it was a bit like the story of, so this is a conversation between you and I, so we can both talk. It's a bit like the story of when I'm massaging the Hollywood movie star, and I have this sensation that I don't understand what's happening. So it feels visceral, it feels like my head's expanding. And then I start channeling. It was like I started talking, and the little me is going, shut up, you don't know this, stop talking, stop. But I couldn't stop my mouth talking. It's like something else took over. I had a headache for 3 days after that because my consciousness wasn't aligned with the amount of information that was flowing through me. I had to clean up my consciousness, stop criticizing myself, stop I'm not good enough, and all that stuff that we do when we're young. But with you, you had an interesting experience at the beginning of our time when you said, right, I'm going to do these 12 weeks with you, and the guides, the mob, the group, the gang, the soul family said, right, well, let's energetically get him ready for what Karen's going to do with him. And do you want to just tell people? Because I love this, because you don't have to put a shingle on the door and say psychic to be psychic. Like when you have an intention of wanting to expand your consciousness, your mob says, okay, here we go. Do you want to just share with people what happened to you energetically at the beginning?
Sure. It was a Saturday morning, and I had woken up, and I was just sitting there kind of relaxed, and quite often I'll listen to a podcast or something in the morning, and I was lying in bed, and all of a sudden I kind of felt like there might have been a little bit of weight on me, but my body started to heat up, and I started to vibrate from the tip of my toes to the top of my head and everything in between. And I'm not saying I was convulsing, but my whole body was vibrating internally. And the energy that was coming through it was absolutely fascinating. There was nothing scary about it. It was quite interesting. There's no doubt that I was warming up. My body was actually heating up, but that vibration, it really kind of shook me. And it was for a couple of 3 minutes. And afterwards, I mean, I was totally relaxed. But I must admit, I did stop and say, what was that? And I was quickly told, you download things. And I think that's an appropriate word, that we download in certain ways, that we get information and our vibrations within our body start to change a little bit, and we start to crack open in different ways. And there's no doubt that happened, especially during those 12 weeks that we spent together.
Yeah. So the next time we met, you asked me what was happening to me. And I got that, you were sort of expanding, but that explanation didn't feel enough for how you explained what had happened to me. Like, he's expanding. I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, it just didn't feel like a good enough explanation. But in that time we spent together, where did we go? We looked at some of your past lives. We talked to some of your spirit guides. You met some, energies that gave you an identity and gave you amazing messages. You started channeling amazing messages. You spoke to some dead people. Like, we went to all these places you didn't know you could do, but I have to say, so effortlessly, so easily. And I do this with people all the time, and they get it effortlessly and easily too. And then they go, am I just making this stuff up? Can I trust this information? There's always that doubt, that trust thing, right? Sure. And there was a little bit of that with you, but not as much as many people, because when you get too untrusting, you block the channel. You block your ability to do that, to have that awareness. But we went so many places. It was so much fun. And I think the past life thing was amazing, because most hypnotherapists that take people through past lives do a really big sort of thing to bring them in out of that beta brainwave into a theta, and you can do in low delta, like it, that's somnambulism. There's just many brainwaves you can play with. And I just did it with you, like a couple of breaths, bit of a visualization, bang, there we go. We're there. It was so easy. It was so easy. It didn't take hours. It was so much fun.
It was, Karen. And I think as we are growing and we haven't had these experiences, like myself, obviously I've had some experience throughout my life that I've shared with you, but when we started to do that past life regression specifically, if we want to look at it, that famous word of trust comes in.
Yeah.
I had total faith and trust in what you were talking about, and it allowed me to drop all my barriers, and all my shields dropped down, and allowed that subconsciousness to literally come forward and put that conscious mind in the back. And I think part of that may have happened just because I've had the opportunity to meditate for as long as I have.
Absolutely.
And so I think that may have helped, but there's no doubt that past life regression, which was the third time that I've actually had that done, I mean, was simple. And to this day, I can still remember many, many parts of it like it was yesterday. And meeting the people that were part of that past life that have actually crossed in this life was fascinating. I wasn't expecting it. And you as a teacher were phenomenal for me. And that's why I'm so excited about wanting to share that information with other people, because I think there's opportunity for people that are looking for a teacher. You would fill that role extremely well for many people.
Thank you. A nice advertisement today. Nice advertisement.
Yeah.
I want to tell you something about that I found so fascinating, because you hear on podcast shows people who speak about near-death experiences, and they go through the life review. And many people have said, when you're witnessing the life review from that experience in spirit or in the astral plane or wherever, it's like you're in it. You're not watching it. It's like you're there again, like you're reliving it. And that you said the same thing to me when you were, it's like you said, it's like I'm there, Karen. I'm in that body again. And I had never heard that with a client that was having a past life review. I'd never heard that from a client. I'd heard that from people on podcast shows when they're in spirit and doing life reviews, but I'd never heard that from a client. And I thought, whoa, this is so cool. Yeah.
It was. I was there.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating, because when you're there, you see it all. You feel the grass.
Yeah, it's like the smell, you feel the body, like you're wearing the body and what that feels like to have that body, and you can feel things like the wind on your skin, and it's like you're there. It's really Fantastic.
Yeah. And you know, the one thing that I will mention, that was so powerful for me of that particular instance, because you were allowing me to go through this past life with great guidance. You were asking just great questions to allow me to progress. And not that we moved too quick, but we didn't move slowly. And, you know, we got to the point of when I was transitioning from life back to the spirit world. And that experience was, I mean, I could feel it in my body, which was not a scary experience at all. It was absolutely fascinating and so refreshing, and releasing all of these. I think we live in a world where there's a lot of inundation of
Limitation.
negative and negativity, and
Density,
we're just feeling all this stuff.
Yeah.
And when I transitioned in that past life, it was just, the freedom was
The release.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
It felt so good. And then I came back, and here we were, and I felt great, felt refreshed. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. So again, I highly advise people to check things out with you, and if they're looking to grow in a spiritual way, and I can't tell you what way an individual wants to grow, but you were kind enough to look at so many different modalities with me, and all of them were just absolutely a blessing.
Yeah, we had fun playing.
Oh, we did. And I think that's important too, is that we had fun. I trusted you. I believe you allowed me to be who I was. We had fun. We laughed. You know, the occasional tear would come out, but it was just a wonderful, wonderful time.
Playing in the universe. And that's the thing about expanding your psychic awareness, is that it's not just to hang a shingle on the door and say, okay, now I'm a psychic, I'm going to give you readings, or, you know,
Sure.
tell you who you were in a past life, or speak to your dead friends. It's like when I was on radio, I remember the first time I saw what we had to do, because when you're on community radio, you've got to organize the panel, you've got to answer the phone. There's no secretary, there's no production. You've got to tune in psychically to your guest sitting across the desk, or the person on the phone. You've got to remember to put the ads on. You've got to play some music, take calls from, like, it is a multitasking. And I remember watching this guy do it and thinking, I'll never do this. I'll never be able to do this. And yet I just handed it over to the intelligence that flows through me, and allowed that to take over. And that's the beauty of having this awareness, that trust, as you say, Lee, is like handing it over to that intelligence, because we're an extension of source energy, of infinite intelligence, and letting that flow through you to do whatever you want to do. Like whatever you want to do, whether you're, you know, like it just, and I was amazed at how I could do it. I could multitask. And because I remember thinking, I've got to switch brain waves. I've got to move out of the beta brainwave, which is technical, and move into a theta, which is tuning into my client and getting messages from, I had one woman in the show, and we're talking about Mother Teresa, and there's Mother Teresa in spirit in the radio station, and I'm talking to Mother Teresa in spirit. And so I was switching between all these brain waves. And what I realized from that is that the mind, the brain, is a phenomenal apparatus that can have multiple brain waves happening simultaneously, that allows you to do exactly that. And that was fascinating. That, to me, that was fascinating, to be able to experience that and watch that happening. So yeah, you can be in this really deep sort of delta brainwave and be channeling, but also there's another part of your brain that's still operating in alpha or beta, that's calculating and thinking. Yeah, it's fascinating. And this is how often when you hear, and you'll have many guests on your show too, you hear people say, I'm a conscious channel, which means I'm channeling some identity, but I'm still in my brain thinking. It's like the me channeling with the Hollywood movie star. There is this information flowing through my mouth, and there's me still in my brain, in my body, saying, shut up, you can't do it. So there's still the worried me trying to interfere with the process, but the process would not be interfered. I suppose there would have been a cutoff point if I really, really insisted I could have stopped it. I don't know. It was so many years ago, but
Sure.
yeah. So there's a lot going on in this amazing body of ours, Lee. It's just amazing who we are and what's possible when we start exploring that, right?
It is. It is. You know, Karin, you've had a very successful podcast for many years. You came off radio and obviously continued into the podcasting. Where do you see yourself going in the next 5 years? Where do you want to grow? What do you want to do? What are you being told you're being prepared for?
That's a great question. I've been told a lot. Do I reveal it all on today's show? I was given a download in 2014. So, Sydney's a huge city. It's Australia's biggest city, lots of people. It's spread out, it's massive. And the consciousness expansion in Sydney is exponential, what's happening. And I've been watching over the last 13 years, people coming and going, putting on events, and I've been a part of many of the events, both as a speaker and as a helper and a facilitator. But I had this idea, like, I remember thinking, why hasn't Sydney got a centre like New York with the Omega Centre or the Esalen Centre that's in California? Why isn't there a conscious hub in Sydney that, galvanizes the conscious community? We are Australia's biggest city, and yet there's nothing that can facilitate this consciousness expanding, like a university facilitates learning. Like there are universities. Why isn't there some university for consciousness education? And I was given the download about this conscious hub and extensively about what this business would look like, this building and space. And I said, oh my God, that's going to take a lot of money and a lot of work. I'm not interested in getting that going, but I'd be happy to be a part of it. And I'd be happy to see that happen in Sydney. And I have seen many people try it and come and go financially, and they've started small and then lost money. Like one guy, I shared the download with him and like, great, let's do it, really enthusiastically. And he hired a small space that used to be a warehouse space, that's what to hold events in, and then COVID hit and shut him down. I mean, he had good intentions, but then COVID hit. So
Sure.
I think my future is in organizing that in the next 10 years, and me and others, because I've said to the mob, I don't want to do this alone. It needs to be a collective. It needs to be a collective thing. It's not me, my business. It needs to be like an umbrella that allows a bit like a shopping center houses all sorts of different businesses. This is how I see the conscious hub. So it's going to house all sorts of different businesses. So people can come with their business and run their events there. And it's a place where people can come and gather and socialize. And we can also party and learn to cook and learn to grow organic food and learn to cook, sort of new food and vegan recipes. And it's a whole center. It's a whole hub. It's like a university of consciousness, and it should galvanize the conscious community in Sydney. So there's Neil actually that I had on the show last week. Right. He's coming down and he wants to run Portal to Ascension conference here in Sydney, and he's like, where can we do that? So you can hire an RSL club where they've got poker machines next door, but they've got good facilities, right? Or you can hire some hall. But I just feel like there needs to be a place where we can go to do these sorts of things. Yeah. And so I see that on the cards in the next 10 years. Yeah.
Great. Well, and so many times, Karin, and I think this may speak to you because I think I've heard it from you as well. It's the intention that's the important part. The how just comes to us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so I appreciate all the challenge that can happen, to try to put it together. But really, when you start to focus on intention, I think we've all seen that in our own lives, that somehow it'll just come together because
it'll come together.
What you're wanting
I said to the mob, great idea. I don't want to do it. Sounds like it's going to take a lot of time and money. But if it happens, make it easy and fun. Make it easy and fun, and it'll happen. And I held on to this idea for years, and I didn't feel impulsed at all to move, to act on it, to look for real estate or to start raising funds or any of that, to act on it. But I shared the vision with people, and they're all like, yeah, I've had that vision too. I've had that vision too. Like, we've all had the vision, right? And so I've shared the vision, and one person did act on it, as I said, just before COVID hit, and bang. And I said to them before, actually, about 2018, when's this going to happen? And they said 2022, but then all this stuff was going on in 2000. It didn't happen, and it couldn't have happened then, because all those types of businesses shut down where we gather physically. We was all shut down, movie, cinema, theatres, and events, and all of it, art galleries. It was all closed where we came together physically. So the timing from the mob was not spot on, but every year I get more and more of it, and I feel more to act on it.
Good.
Yeah, but I said to them, make it fun and make it easy, and it'll just all sort itself out. When you align your energy, it's just effortless. It becomes easy and effortless, and it just all falls into place. As many things, I could tell you a million stories, Lee, where that happened. I'll just share one quickly. When I met my second husband, he had been a Hare Krishna, and so he'd come from that spiritual perspective, and he was studying healing energy and Reiki and all that sort of thing. And I'd met him at a group where we'd come together to speak about this stuff. And I had asked him, what do you dream about? And he had never dreamt, because he had such a low opinion of himself because of his circumstances. I won't go into them. But he thought, well, if I dream about it, it won't come true. So what's the point? I'll just get on with it and work and study and, just get on with life. And I said, but if you could dream, what would you dream? It took a while to get it out of him, because he'd never allowed himself to really dream about doing something. And he said, I've never traveled. I'd really like to travel. He was well versed in the Vedas, and he wanted to go to Mother India. And I said, well, let's do that. And he worked at a corporate job, and he said, but my business would never give me time off to do that. I'd have to quit my job, and I can't afford to do that. There's all the can'ts and the can't do's and can't do's. And I said, don't worry about that. We're not talking about why you can't do it. We're just dreaming. We're just putting energy out there and just free flowing with what you want, and not looking at how that's going to happen. Just dreaming. And the circumstances that lined up after that were unbelievable, honestly, in every way. It's a much longer story, but basically his business, the company he worked for, introduced what was called a career break, which said, you can take 3 months off and still keep your job. We won't pay you, but you can. And he's like, who would do that? And then at a spiritual gathering, the guru that we were showcasing insisted on giving us a spiritual wedding that day. I have to marry you. I'm going to marry you today. I'm like, okay. And then a friend of mine said, oh, I want to give you a honeymoon present. And I said, we're not doing the honeymoon thing. We just got married because it felt right. And she said, no, I think you should have a honeymoon. I think you should travel the world. And I think you should take at least 3 months, and don't come back before 3 months. And I'm going to give you a whole lot of money to do that. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what happened. And then when we came back, I had let go of my rental apartment, the house, and we'd put everything in storage, and we were in the, I don't know what's going to happen when we come back. He had his job, but we were all in the, I don't know. And I stayed at a friend's place, and she said, you can only stay there for a little while. She wasn't there. She was in another house that she had, but don't stay there long. I don't want you to be there when I come home. And she was sort of not happy about us staying there. And she kept asking me every day, have you looked for somewhere to live? Have you looked for somewhere to live? Have you looked for? And I said, yes, yes, yes. And I didn't. I went to the beach. I caught up with friends. I'd been away, so I caught up. It was summer. We went to the beach. The beach is a good place. Relax, go to the beach. That's the guidance. And then a girlfriend said, I want you to rent my house. And like, bang. It's a longer story, but just all lined up. Bang, 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 bang. Just relax, have fun, and just let the universe handle the details. Like, that's the teaching. That's the teaching of deliberate prayer. And that's how it's worked in my life. So with the center, the hub, the conscious hub, I expect it to be exactly the same. Just
Sure.
let the universe handle the details. And when I feel impulse to act, I'll act. Yeah. Yeah.
And so really what we've talked about tonight, for those of us that have had a little bit of a challenge from time to time of trying to understand what really happens, is first and foremost, we have to trust.
Right.
We then have to put out to the universe what we're looking for, what we want, but we need to be specific, because if we're just general, if it comes back to us, and it's happened to me, I know I wasn't specific enough, and when it came back, it was like, well, that's not quite what I wanted, but it's exactly what I asked for.
Well, actually,
But-
you don't have to be specific, but the universe or life will deliver what you are a vibrational match to. So you can ask for something and not be a vibrational match to that, but be a vibrational match to some of it. And you'll get some of it, and then you'll go, well, it's not really what I wanted. I remember thinking I want a house with a view of the ocean and a swimming pool. And I couldn't afford it. I didn't have any money, not to buy, but to rent, because I didn't even think I could buy, a $10 million house. Sydney's very expensive. And I moved in, I got kicked out of a house, and I moved into a house, and it didn't have a swimming pool, but the loft, it had a loft up, and you could see the ocean from the top window. And the people next door, well, down the road, had a swimming pool. My little daughter befriended the little girl. And so I thought it wasn't exactly what I asked. But Lee, I wasn't a vibrational match to it at the time, because I wanted it, but didn't feel like I could afford it, right? So what happened when I moved from that house, I wanted to live in a different part of Sydney that was more beautiful. I had looked for months, even probably a year or so, and I couldn't find something I wanted. And then a girlfriend said, come up to my place, I'm having a party. I live up in that area where I wanted to live. So I went up there to her party, and she said, this is a house where we have to move out at Christmas time because the people that own it use it for their holiday house. But then we can move back in, and it's very cheap rent. You can stay here for very cheap rent for 10, 11 months, but you have to move out for a month at Christmas time during our summer. And
Right.
it had views for days, like views of like right down the coast, right up the coast, right out to sea, and it had a swimming pool. And it also came with a guy that lived downstairs, sort of a separate part of the house. They were like joined, but not joined. He had a daughter exactly my daughter's age. So Shirley said, I'm not moving back next year. Do you want to move in? Again, effortless, absolutely effortless, right? I looked and looked and looked, didn't find what I'm looking for, but then this turned up when I relaxed and stopped looking and stopped asking. And to this day, a daughter, oh, it's going to make me cry again. My daughter sent me a message just before we came on. That little girl that lived next door is my daughter's best friend. Like, they're in their 30s now. So it came with a view and a swimming pool and a best friend.
And a best friend, a lifelong friend.
Yeah. She sent me a message and said, help me pick out a dress for Melody's wedding. Who was that little girl?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah, so be careful what you ask for, you get it. And I always say, I think Oprah used to say this too, the universe has in store for you so much more magnificent a dream than you could ever think about. So when I asked the universe for a view in a swimming pool, I didn't say a best friend for my daughter, but it came with a best friend. So my daughter is saying, I wish I had a sister, or maybe she's, releasing rockets of desires. And the universe, the infinite intelligence of the organizational power of the universe, has the ability to line up everyone's desires and put it all in one. So you don't have to be absolutely specific, but you do have to align your energy to what you're asking for. And that is that going into that relaxed space, that trust. What does trust feel like? It feels like peace. It feels like knowing. What does trust feel like? And living in that space of just carefreeness and relaxed and allowing. What does it feel like to trust? What does it feel like to know that everything is taken care of? Everything is taken care of. What does that feel like?
That sense of knowing, I think, is extremely accurate.
Yeah.
We do. We know when things are aligned for us. and life will just continue on. And, you know, Karen, we could talk about so many different things. I wanted to get into more of what you've done and things that you could share with us. But, you know, we're like probably taken up enough of your time. It's probably midday down there in Australia, a little bit later for us up here in the central time zone of North America. But, you know, Karen, there's ways that people can connect with you. What are the best ways, and where can people find you?
Thanks, darling. KarenSwain.com. I'm also on, you know, I'm on every platform there is. I'm quite technical. I like to play. So I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and BitChute and Odyssey and Rumble and YouTube. I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere. But yeah, the website, KarenSwain.com, you'll find me there. It's a huge website. It's a very old website. It's got so much information on it. I don't even know what's on there anymore. People say to me, you should update your website. And I'm like, oh my God, that would be such a hassle. So much, because I've been interviewing, having conversations with people for, oh gosh, you know, 13, 14 years now. Even on the radio station, I used to podcast a lot of the conversations I had and upload it. But I used a program, a website called Audit, that now no longer exists. So I've lost a lot of that information from the radio station. But yeah, SoundCloud is where I audio podcast, but it also goes on Spotify and Apple and all sorts of audio podcasts. It's on about, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 different, I never even know. People send me emails saying, claim your podcast. We're a new platform and we're streaming you. They just take the streaming key and they put your podcast on there. So but you'll find me at KarenSwain.com, and I look forward to talking to you, Lee, and sharing with people your story. We've shared a little bit today, but we can share more
we
soon.
touched on it. It is. You know, Karen, thank you so much for taking the time in your day to hook up with me again today and have a conversation. I'm sure there's some great nuggets out there that people are going to be able to hear. Don't forget, KarenSwain.com. You need to look her up and check it out. Wow. Karen, thanks again for being with us.
Thanks.
Have a blessed day. It's great seeing you.